Welcome back to Renk Seeds of Innovation. I'm your host, Max Renk, and today we're taking you along with us as we dive deeper into how we process the seed that you plant each spring. Joining me is Brett Renk, who is a familiar voice here on the podcast. Brett leads our seed production team at Renk, overseeing everything from how seed is harvested and handled to how it's cleaned, sized, treated, and prepared before it reaches your farm. If you've ever been curious about what happens inside a seed plant, or what determines how each seed makes it into your planter box, this episode is for you. Starting off, Brett and I discuss early critical steps in the processing plant and how it all comes together to provide the highest quality seed and confidence to our growers. Let's dive in. As someone who's worked on not all yet, but many of the machines in our processing facility, I can attest to how much the seed is cleaned and sorted before it gets to its treatment. Walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, we use basically all the same equipment for the corn tower and the soybean tower with one small exception. When we come to sizing the corn, those go through sizers, and all sizers are screens that have different size holes in them. So if it falls through the hole, it's this size. If it stays above the hole, it's that size. It's not all that complicated, but it does start splitting it down by a narrow seed size for quality planting. Planters today are not nearly as sensitive as, back in the old days when we had plates and it was critical. I mean, when I was a kid, we were still running 8 different sizes, and I'm not as young as I used to be anymore. And what we're planting with today is truly amazing compared to thinking back even 30, 40 years ago, which isn't that long ago. The things that you've seen over time and getting the true plateless planters and the allowances they have, but I mean, they're still not magic. And so having a fairly consistent seed size or something in the ballpark makes that go a lot better. I'm sure the guys with some of the modern monitors can watch some parameters to incredibly detailed accuracies. So you really know what's going on versus there's plenty of people that are still familiar with the first blinky light monitor they had. And the lights are blinking, the corn's coming out. Like, okay, good. That's way better than just going on faith like it used to be. But first thing we do is we clean it. And so people that have been around a fanning mill, it's that on steroids. We use the most current Cimbria cleaners. It's something called actually a super cleaner. If you look it up on their website, there's after air, there's air when it comes in, there's screens to start breaking it down by size and clean out things that don't belong. Stuff is too big, stuff is too small. We're using air suction on the intake. We actually use suction and lifting, so like a pressure system on the exit. So you can pick out things that are to shocking detail. It allows you to do things that you just cannot do without it. Again, it's just a tool. And so training your guys to do the best possible job you can with the tools you have at hand with no excuses, it all adds up. So now we've cleaned it, 2 separate air, start splitting it down by size using different size screens in the cleaner itself, taking out things that don't belong. There are large screens and small screens both. Large screens are really easy because the product just falls through, and then the big stuff stays on top, a little chunk of cob or something that made it through. The sifting, getting small stuff out of a product, takes a lot more surface area. And so being able to run that at a conservative pace helps both in the air. Think about how thick the product is going through an air passage. If you're pushing your capacities really high, you just can't do as good a job because you're pushing so much product through. Well, if you have it sized up enough and you can run conservatively, you can do a much better job. And the same thing on the sifting screens, where you make sure you have plenty of surface area to get out the small stuff that doesn't belong. After that, you go into sizers. The sizers are just screens that split it based on the size of the screen. Not terribly complicated. Run product in, but you still got to maintain it. Make sure it's not leaky or have a hole in it or something's broke or whatever. But they go through them every summer and make sure everything's just so you can run reliably all year long. They have like chicken slappers, like we call them. That's a long story in its own right. But there's little rubber flaps that rotate on there and knocks the kernels out. There's this soft rubber so that they don't damage anything. That's the other thing too, is all this stuff handling. Dropping kernels, dropping seed is a bad thing. Would you like to be dropped on your head? No. Well, if you are going to drop you on your head, let's go from as short of a distance as possible. Well, that's kind of the premise here. Conveyor belts are slow. They're only 200 feet a minute, and that's a walking speed. So when something comes off of a conveyor belt, it doesn't have a whole bunch of intrinsic speed already built into it. And so all these things, there's no dropping. Or if there is a situation where you have to drop it, like say we talked about the bulk storage, into a bin. Well, these things are 40 feet tall and they're being fed from a conveyor belt. Bucket elevators are also slow, no speed, and no augers, nothing to damage stuff. As you guys are well aware, this stuff is expensive. Well, let's keep it as good as we possibly can and not ruin any of it. But in the bin, there's something called a letdown. We call them letdown ladders. And so basically it's a little chute in there. So that allows the seed to be let down from the conveyor to the bottom, nice and gentle.
Essentially, it looks like a little zigzag
Yeah.
where you got little sloped ramps that the seed can bounce off of. Bounce is a strong word, but slide down without dropping and plummeting 40 feet.
Right. And so inside the processing tower, it's the same story. Any place that there's a drop of any sort has a letdown in it. You have a chute that runs from one piece to another. The angle is never more than 30 degrees. You say, well, geez, that's kind of low for grain. Well, it is. But we're running seed. It's already clean and it's nice and dry. So it'll slide just fine. But at 30 degrees, it won't pick up too much speed between point A and point B. And I mean, we're talking about things that are only maybe 10 feet away. We're not talking about 2 or 3 feet here. We're not talking 20 or 30 feet either. Nothing goes very far. So now we've cleaned it, we've sized it. We go to graders. So graders are similar to sizers in that they have a hole in the screen, but instead it's a slot. All right. Well, all that does is split flats and rounds. Flats go through the slot, rounds stay on top. So now we've got all the grades are separated. So mediums and larges and smalls, everything's separated, flats and rounds. And then we'll gravity table it. And we gravity table after all the sizing because gravity tables separate based on density, but they will also separate based on size. So small things act like light things and heavy things act like large things and vice versa. And then every shade of gray in between. And so we'll cut off whatever is necessary on a gravity table for density separation. After that, then we also have optical sorting. You have things like, just a disease kernel in there. Maybe one got broke along the way and like the size fits, but it's kind of bright white where it's broken. Well, we can pick that out optically. I don't really call them color sorters per se. There's a background, bright lights. And basically, if it's a lot brighter than the background, it creates a high voltage. And if it's a lot darker than the background, it creates a low voltage. And it will eject based on your sensitivity settings of that. But I mean, as a person looking at a handful of seed, you can look at it and go, pick out this one that are got a little disease in it or insect chewed on a kernel and it's got a black spot on it. Well, that's very easy for optically to see, but it's not easy to pick out density-wise, size-wise, even shape-wise. You can actually pick out shapes on the cleaner with the air, and it's that sensitive. All these little things add up. We've started optical sorting in 2004, which seems absolutely crazy looking at it today. I would say it's commonplace, but 20 years ago, that was not the case. I would say its infancy for us came from vegetable crops, food crops. Tolerances are much lower for insect damage. But one of the things too is, I would say with vegetable crops is throughputs are lower. So once that technology advanced far enough to be cost comes down to something we can work with, and throughputs, it was a big key part of that is, and now there's machines out there by several companies or businesses that do optical sorting at the seed level pretty effectively. And really prices haven't changed that much with some of the technologies that have been available in 20 years. So, I mean, what you'll pay for today is a bit more than you did 20 years ago, but the technology and what it can do is truly astounding. You think back 20 years ago and you upgrade your computer every other year or more often. Well, now it's like, whatever. And what you paid for it is a fraction of what it used to be too. So, and optical technology has been still advancing very, very quickly compared to your typical desktop computer. And so that was been a big change. One of the things about a density separation is you'll identify a kernel when you're sitting there watching the machine, and you can sit there and stare at it all day long if you want. Well, I do. Not everybody does. But you'll drive yourself crazy with it because there'll be something you see you don't like, and I want to get that one. But then you got to throw away 10 good ones to get that bad one. And so there's always a trade. And so that optical sorter allows you a shocking amount of accuracy to get that one bad one you're hunting for without getting rid of the good ones. We had an instance once, we did some contract work for somebody that they were really struggling with some kernel pop. So that's where the pericarps split open and then they leak starches into the husk and you'll wind up these black kernels. It's not all that uncommon to find, and some are better than others. And these inbreds, they had one and it was kind of bad. And there's no way to get these dumb things out. I mean, they're the same size, they're the same shape, they're the same density, but they look like crap. And you know they're not going to grow, or they're just infection point for the seedling diseases when they try to germ. They actually contracted us to run it for them, just a few thousand units, and get it back to them. And they're like, well, your discard percentage was lower than everybody else's. What do you mean? They say, well, the bushels I brought you to bags was better than anybody else, despite still being able to do this. And that's some of the things that optical technology gets to do for you, is you get all the bad stuff and you don't have to throw away a bunch of good stuff to get it. Get what you got to get out, but leave the good stuff, and it pays. It's a big deal, and it's a much bigger deal when there's a problem. Getting back to the optical technology allows us to do some things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And it actually even improved our throughput a little bit. It allows us to let the optical sorter make a decision on it instead of chasing down every last goofy looking kernel on the gravity table or density separation, because you just can't, or you're just to throw away a ton of good seed to get that one bad one. And yeah, okay, that's a decision you have to make, that I'm not going to let it go. But at the same time, too, is like, well, look, we've got a tool that can do this effectively without breaking the bank. And no, they weren't cheap, I can assure you. And putting them in was even less fun. That they do serve a purpose.
As Brett's pointed out, there's a lot of these things that we as human beings can do with our hands and our eyes. But that is millions of kernels going across. Billions. And we're doing this at scale very, very precisely. Seed treatment is a pivotal part of what we do as farmers. And I know, because I got to interact with them and see it, that we do all of our own custom treating here. And I know, Brett, you designed our treaters. Walk us through that process.
Yeah, we've sorted in 1,800 different ways, every way we could possibly think of and afford to seed, sort, and clean. And so now it just goes on to treating. And so treaters changed quite a lot here a number of years ago with the advent of the seed applied insecticides. And what it comes down to is there's a lot of solids in that treatment product. People have probably seen it in their own work. Stuff is getting thicker and thicker. And the older style treaters, as nice as they were fairly inaccurate, and also really couldn't deal with like a lot of solids in the product. So it was a big move away from those. And also seed applied insecticides. Now things have gone off patent and prices have come down. But the early days, like the Cruiser was one of the first ones we messed with. This was quite a number of years ago. It was quite expensive. And so being off just a little bit was a big deal. Older style treaters, you're only spending, 50, 60 cents on a simple treatment package. It's also the days of only conventional corn, pre-biotech anything. That was good enough. And even like your farm chemicals and your crop protection chemicals, if you're plus or minus 10%, nobody's ever going to know the difference. Just not that sensitive to these kinds of things. Well, and the seed treatment side of things is like, I think there's some of those same logistical rules apply. But here's the thing. I look at it, nobody's paying you to do it wrong. So the number's the number. And then if you're over applying by 10%, I would say we probably move about $2 million worth of product through the corn treatment room every year. Being off 10%, that's a big number. That'll pay for some things. Our typical numbers are plus or minus 0.5%. These products are also 4 fungicides go on, color, polymer. Polymer helps stick all the stuff to the seed and keep it there. The insecticide, water. So there's basically 8 things get injected in at the same time. We used to do it a little bit like a sprayer, where you would mix up a batch and you'd work off the batch over the course of the day. That worked out fine. Keep it all stirred up. They call it slurry. And recent years, it's been more and more difficult to work with that. There's so many things going on. The guy that's running the towers is also the guy mixing the stuff up. And so next thing you know, you're mixing all these things up and you're spending all this time just doing nothing but mixing. And the treatment packages don't change that much. Now, mind you, changing is a pain in the butt. But okay, we're going to run this style of treatment package for the next 3 weeks. And then later we switch into another one. So we'll set it up so that everything is being injected. And so it's all being metered out on the go. This has been evolutionary. We also made our own treaters. So back in 2009, we built our own to do the job that we wanted done the way we wanted it. There were some commercially available things. They were so expensive at the time, and they really didn't get what we wanted done. We wound up doing some research, spending some time on it, and basically we built our own from scratch. That has been surprisingly fruitful because 2 years ago, we actually doubled the capacity of the corn plant. We were kind of feeling like we were going a little slower than we wanted to be able to get the capacities back up. Well, just make another one just like it and run them side by side. And so we were able to increase that capacity. The soybean plant was, I would say, at the time, we built that in 2013, was in the future. We could kind of see that coming. Didn't know when, didn't exactly know why, didn't exactly know where. But, this is coming one way or the other. Well, look, we've got these treaters on the design board ready to go. And so we put 3 of these things in the soybean tower, and it allows us to do some things that is very unconventional in the seed market. It also allows our dealers, they can sell a quality treatment package that's applied by professionals and done exactly the way it's supposed to be done, so they don't have to do it. I mean, certainly not offended by somebody wanting to treat their own beans themselves, but unfortunately, as people have probably already done it, there's a whole lot of, it sounds a lot easier on paper than it does in practice, and all the fun ups and downs that goes with it. Nothing like, oops, and there's $10,000. It's allowed us to basically duplicate the original corn treaters, and for a very nominal amount of money, because you're not reinventing anything. We're just doing the same thing we've always done. And so we're injecting everything. Everything's being weighed as well. So there's multiple layers of calibration along the way to verify, to capture your data and verify that it was actually correct. So in case there's a problem, it'll stop. One of the caveats of this high solids I referred to earlier is buildup, and that also relates to the style of treater we're doing. We're batch treating, so there's a lot more agitation there. It's moving around quite a bit. Theoretically, it shouldn't build up as much inside, but there's always somewhere. So you'll have treatment chunks. It's all enclosed, because who wants to be breathing treatment dust all day long? So it's all enclosed. There's all kinds of dust collection and elimination from the room, so it keeps it clean and healthy for the operator. But these treatment chunks have been showing up, and this is something I'm sure people have dealt with somewhere along the line. And if you weren't one of those people, well, you're lucky. Something that we put in here not too many years ago was, after it's been treated and it goes into a bin, and then it's waiting there to be bagged, whether it's either in a box or a paper bag, and then also ribbed for the technology products, and that gets done at the bag level as well. But we do have we'll call it a sorting process after treating for treatment chunks. I jealously guard that information. If some other company wants to figure out what we're doing, well, you got to figure it out for yourself. But we do something there to eliminate these treatment chunks, or at least get it down to a size that can be managed by a planter and is fairly transparent. Nothing like having like a 2-inch chunk shed off of there and get that stuck in your planter. And I've had a few hostile phone calls, and I don't blame you. If I were out there, and of course it's always 10 o'clock at night and the storm's coming, and sure enough, but that's just how farming is, right?
Yep, nothing good happens during the day.
Yeah, right. Only the bad stuff happens at night. And after all that, we do the blending for the refuge in the bag at the bagger. So it's actually a second weigh hopper there that weighs it in, and so it's being metered in, and every bag is weighed and metered and drops in with the seed at the time of we call it major, the larger portion of the bag. And so again, that was something we did on our own too, because all right, refuge in a bag is coming, and I have to laugh because your whole life, everything is segregated. This field is this number and this way, and we plant it separate and we harvest it. Everything's in the batch. So it goes in the dryer in a batch, it goes in the bulk storage in a batch, you process it as a batch. This is all kept segregated. It's all just, again, now we're just going to blend it together. And that is just, that's blasphemy.
They'll make your skin crawl every time.
Well, I got over it, but boy, I tell you what. So we're going to do this refuge in a bag, and I understand the premise of it and why it was important, and I do believe it's extremely important for us to be able to keep our technologies for a longer period of time, It's done right. Again, I mean, not to say anybody's not a professional, but this is what we do, and it is documented, and it is the right way. And so there's no question that refuge is in there. It's proper. It's the right things, and protect that technology for us as long as we possibly can. But, all right, this is coming down the pipeline. Everybody's excited about it. There's no equipment to do this. You basically can't go buy one. Well, what are you supposed to do?
Well, you're about to enlighten us.
So, well, figure it out, and maybe you can get out your engineering degree and start going searching the internet for ideas. And it's not even so much as finding something. There's nothing commercially available, and then what fits with what you're doing already. Believe me, when nobody left a rib pocket in the plant when they built it in 1990, that wasn't even a figment of somebody's imagination. So you had to figure it out, and like so many things, the simplest solutions are usually the most elegant. And so we were able to get something figured out and meet all of our reporting requirements that are driven by the EPA and get it all done with a high accuracy and moving forward, and actually made some things better for the guys bagging while we're in there, making changes. Well, let's make some things better. It didn't happen overnight, but didn't have to spend a ton of money. You didn't have to rip out the entire bagging line to put in a new fancy bagging line for $1 million that would accommodate our needs. Do all the same thing you're already doing, but just spend more money. And so at the end of the day, keeping it efficient, working with the things that you've got, and use every tool to its maximum and do the best job you possibly can. The cleaning of the treatment chunks, there were a couple things we were chasing after in there. Then last little bit that comes out of the bin after treating has some fines in it always. Whenever you handle grain, you're always making some more fines or some more dust. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so this is one last cleaning step before it goes in a bag. And it really has a lot more secondary benefits than I ever expected. It surprised me. We had to do a little legwork to figure that one out, but we made it happen and got it done. And I'm very happy we did so. It's paid off a lot in the last 2 years. That also goes for soybeans. It's not just corn. We do the same thing for soybeans as well. I mean, soybeans are evil little devils. And when it comes to treating, because even if you just put water on them, they'll stick together.
So what do you do about that?
Well, same thing too, that by treating them here at the plant and they get put into a bin and they'll sit there, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. Beans are kind of funny. They don't soak up the moisture like the corn does. Corn, you treat it and the moisture is gone almost instantly because they soak up the water so fast. Soybeans, it takes a little longer. And even if it's just a couple of minutes, it makes a huge difference. Having it sit in the bin for a few minutes, even 15 minutes, but like the bins are large enough. It's like a whole semi-load, so this doesn't happen in 5 minutes. The other thing is we'll have 2 bins for every treater. So if you're emptying one, you can be filling the other. So there's always this back and forth going on. So the guys are processing. Well, also my treatment chunk eliminator will also help shake out any treatment chunks or soybean chunks. There's a bunch of them that are stuck together. It'll sift them out.
The bonded ones get sorted out by the same way.
But that really doesn't actually come to fruition simply because once you move them, they just fall apart. And so even just the act of coming out of the bin loosens them up and they're moving and making darn sure that isn't chunky going into the planter. Whereas like on the on-farm, not complaining with the on-farm guys because it does make my life easier sometimes, particularly on soybeans. But they're treating and putting it right into a box. And I'm sure everybody that's been there and done that knows that, gee, they don't really want to come out of the box. Open the door, nothing happens. That will not happen from here because they've been handled just a little bit more. That's all it takes.
Which goes a long way for making sure that by the time it gets to the planter, it's...
Put it in and go. You're ready to go and there's no gyrating around.
It's already enough time spent just loading up your planter. Why waste any more?
Yeah, you get out there and get the job done instead of messing around.
All right, now that we're moving past the super secret seed chunk separator, we want to make sure that with utmost certainty before it gets to anyone's farm, it's the right product and that it is ready to perform to what we believe it should perform. I know because you've beaten this into me, Brett, that we will do that the right way. Let's talk about seed germ here.
At the bagger, we'll take a sample as we're bagging. So, and just a little bit every so often comes out. And so at the end of the batch or into the lot, they'll have at least a 2-pound sample you can use. And then we'll send that off to a lab to confirm technology percentages, make sure there's nothing that is out of place, whatever. But the biggest thing, really, the technology, it's in the genes. I mean, if you did all the other steps right, it's not going to be any kind of an issue. But the biggest thing is in germination. It has to grow. And so you have warm germination and cold germination. Warm germ is a typical germ. There's standards to be met, and the protocols are standardized as well. Basically, you should be able to send it from one place to another and be able to repeat those numbers no matter what. Well, that's not really quite how this works. I mean, we're still working with biological things. These are living things. It's not always exactly the same. They're not always the same shape, size, responses. There's so many things involved. And theoretically, with lab work, it should be pretty consistent. And I would say within the lab, there's a lot of consistency. But you go from one to the other, that can be a bit of a problem. The one other thing is the cold germinations, they're sort of standardized. There are some standards that are available from AOSA is one of the American, American Seed Association, something like that, is AOSA. They have a standard and they're not always followed. And so part of the thing is experience. Is this lab getting us the information we need when we need it? And then does this fit with our expectations? And I'm not going to say that, well, gee, this didn't work out the way I expected it to. Something's wrong. Sometimes you have to listen to what it's telling you. All of the work you put in up front generally leads to very high quality seed and very high germinations. Tolerate pretty much anything you throw at it. Damage is a place for diseases to get in. Physical damage, it never gets better. And so getting a high quality stand, getting consistent stands, even in not perfect conditions, relates to all that. And we also do warm and cold germinations both on soybeans, which is a little uncommon. The only thing ever done was warm germs. Because, everybody knows you plant your soybeans later and it's warmer. And I mean, heck, people didn't treat soybeans until, I would say, much more recently. I mean, it's always been to a certain extent an issue. But if nobody's planting soybeans till the middle of May and it's nice out, it's really not that big a deal.
But we've been seeing a change when people are planting soybeans.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden now it's the middle of April and it's 40 degrees every night. And by God, we're out planting beans, boys. The seed treatment becomes a bit more of an issue. And then those cold germs become more of an issue. We do that as well, looking for troubles that might come up. And the soybean cold germs tend to be lower, as is a broad statement, than corn. I mean, corn you can have 98% warm, 98% cold. It's not even unusual. And cold simulates those 50-degree days. Get some water in it, run it 70 degrees for a day, and then turn the temperature down to 50 degrees for a week, and then turn it back up and see what happens. Is the kind of the gist of it. I mean, there's far more to it than that. And without having it all protocoled out on my sheet in front of me, I'm not going to be able to rattle it off. But that's the gist of it. A good stressful cold germ. And there's many, many different ways of going at this. They have saturated colds. They have all kinds of different protocols. And it seems like everybody has a different idea of what a cold germ should be. Part of that is like, well, okay, if you have a whole bunch of different protocols, even within, like, say, your same company or same business, well, then how do you compare them? They're all over the place because then the tendency can be quite stark. Just looking for problems and saying, look, at a certain point, I will not put my name on that bag. We have minimums that we will not let out the door, and rarely do we bump into it. And I would say 99 times out of 100, when we do bump into it, it's some seed that's been here for a couple of years. It's gone out, it's come back, it's gone out and come back. There's not much left. Been a couple of seasons. Oh, look, invariably it'll be some large rounds. Like, the germs aren't very good. I went through last year's germs, pulled up anything that was below 90, and said, we're germing it again right now. Before the season starts, here's my most likely problem areas. Let's go look at them right now. So, Max, drag up your agronomy 100. What's the worst thing for corn in the summertime for carrying it over?
Moisture.
Temperature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, because if it gets too warm.
Warm. And the magic temperature is about 78 degrees. So for those of you guys who are hanging on to a few bags of corn out in the shed, well, it's too late now probably. Find a teenage son and make him carry it into the basement or something. Keep it cool.
And that way you can really retain that germ going forward.
Yep. And that's what we do too. Our warehouse space here is very well insulated. Actually, a large portion of the warehouse. It won't even freeze in the wintertime. So you go out there and it's 40 degrees. In the summertime, it's 72, 75 out there. The dog days of summer. That's lovely. And-
Sure is.
But then, come spring when it's warm outside, it's not warm in the warehouse. So, we go to great lengths to preserve that. And then, so soybeans you don't carry over. All the beans you'll plant in 2026 will be grown in 25.
Mm-hmm.
There's no carryover. Corn, that's not always the case. Corn will survive much longer. We have 2 warehouses that are much more well insulated than the others. So the corn gets put in those warehouses for the summer. So that keeps them cooler all summer long. And the second thing we do is we'll fumigate. If anything came in over the course of the year, anything came back on any return seed, gone. Button that up, tape all the doors shut, bomb it, and clean up any kind of a problem that might be there. And so then we're done. We're ready for the new season, all new crop coming in, and no more is coming back.
And it makes sense because you've already put a lot of time and money into processing that seed. Why let a critter eat it?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of value sitting out there. We want to make sure that nothing bad happens.
Makes sense. We made sure that by the time it gets to a farmer's planter, it's going to be ready to rock and roll. It's going to do what we expect it to do. And as you said earlier, our name does go on that bag.
Yes.
And a lot of pride that comes with that.
Well, and it's interesting, I find, too, that we have a lot of long-term employees here. And everybody doesn't do the same thing all year long. We're just not that place. I mean, the guy that planted the seed is the same guy that might be out there detasseling, running the picker, even delivering it in the winter. Everybody's hands are on that seed all way long. And that full circle is important, I think, to every individual that does the work. Much more than just beyond the family name. It's every individual here.
Yeah, well, I mean, for those who are unaware, I spent a lot of time growing up around the farm, as you can imagine. And I ran out of fingers to list our 30 plus, let alone 40 plus year employees here who watched me grow up. And when a employee is explaining to a 16-year-old about what he used to do when he was 4, it can be a little bit embarrassing at that time, but it certainly changes the game once you're in your 20s and then into your 30s, because now it's all just a good joke. Never an unsupervised Renk running around the farm. Except for, I would say, delivering seed, which I think to your point there is that for those of you who've had a delivery and it's not just a semi full of seed, we make sure that that seed gets to you when you need it. And this last year, I know alone, Jeff Renk, Caroline Renk, Will Renk, myself, our warehouse manager, the seed gets to you one way or another. And the names associated with that and the faces are long-term employees here. And we make sure it gets there.
Yeah, I've delivered plenty in my years, but it's been a while since I've been able to get out. And I do miss that. Get out, see a person, usually happy to see it because you're bringing something they want. There's work to do, so you don't get to sit around and chat for too more than a couple minutes. And heck, I remember my mom delivering seed. And that's been a while, but she's done it. So it's all connected. Something needs to be done, you go do it. Doesn't matter what it is.
As Brett shared, seed is personal for us. It's a family commitment, a family responsibility. While seed processing isn't always the most visible part of our day-to-day business, it is one of the most critical factors in how your seed performs in the field. Each step of our seed process is designed to protect the integrity of the genetics and the trust you place in our brand, so that you can step into the field each spring with confidence. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about the technology and equipment. It's the people behind the work we do here at Renk Seed, bringing decades of experience to every seed we send out. If you have questions or want to learn more about how your seed is produced, reach out to your local Renk dealer or connect with us online. We're always here to help, and we're grateful to be a part of your operation. Thank you for joining us today. As always, I'm Max Renk, and this is the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. Until next time.
Be sure to hit subscribe for a notification when a new episode drops each month, and follow Renk on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. This has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast, innovating agriculture one seed at a time.